Glad you could join us today on NetFile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. More people are going hungry. An annual study by the United Nations has found tens of millions have joined the ranks of the chronically undernourished over the past 5 years, and countries around the world continue to struggle with multiple forms of malnutrition. The hungry are most numerous in Asia, but expanding fastest in Africa. The COVID-19 pandemic could tip over 130 million more people into chronic hunger by the end of 2020. The question is, can something be done to reduce the hunger in the land? This is our focus today on the program. Do stay with us. 5 years after the world committed to end hunger, food insecurity, and all forms of malnutrition, we are still off track to achieve this objective by 2030. Data tell us that the world is progressing neither towards the Sustainable Development Goal Target 2.1 of ensuring access to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food for all people all year round, nor towards Target 2.2 of eradicating all forms of malnutrition.
In 2019, we have close to 700 million people, nearly 1 in 10 people in the world, were exposed to severe levels of food insecurity. What this means is that we are not progressing in the reduction of undernourishment in the world. On the contrary, still we're having small increases and not the decline that we had 5 years ago.
The new estimate for 2019 has revealed that an additional 60 million people have become affected by hunger since 2014. If this trend continues, the number of undernourished people will exceed 840 million by 2030. Hence, the world is not on track to achieve zero hunger, even without the negative effect of COVID-19.
A preliminary assessment is that the COVID-19 pandemic may add between 83 and 132 million people to the total number of undernourished in the world in 2020, depending, of course, on the decrease of growth of GDP scenarios that we use. What this means is that the situation and any progress that was made, for example, in poverty reduction in the last 10 years, have been reduced. And moreover, in the case of undernourishment, which has been increasing in the last years, the situation will get worse in a significant amount more of hungry people, which means that it will be even more difficult to be able to achieve SDG 2.
Beyond hunger, a growing number of people have had to reduce the quantity and quality of the food they consume. 2 billion people, or 25.9% of the global population, experienced hunger or did not have regular access to nutritious and sufficient food in 2019.
To increase the affordability of healthy diets, the cost of nutrition foods must come down. That is central to achieve what this report is trying to bring up. We need to make healthy diets more affordable. Now, we need to analyze what are the cost drivers of these diets, and we need to look them within the food supply chain and within the different environment and the political economy that shapes trade, public investment, public expenditure, and investment policies. Tracking these cost drivers will require a large transformation in the food system with no one-size-fits-all solution and different trade-offs and synergies for countries. Countries will need a rebalancing of agricultural policies and incentives towards more nutrition-sensitive investments and policy actions all along the food supply chain to reduce food losses, for example, and enhance efficiency at all stages. We know today, and especially with COVID-19, that the size of food losses will increase. And this is a huge opportunity to reduce them to increase the supply of healthy diets in the world.
The world is making progress but is not on track to achieve the 2025 and 2030 targets for child stunting and low birth weight, and for exclusive breastfeeding is on track only for the 2025 target. The prevalence of wasting is notably above the target. Most regions are not on track to achieve the target for child overweight. Adult obesity is on the rise in all regions. Urgent action is needed to reverse these upward trends.
The most critical need of the citizen is food. Therefore, government is bound to respect the right of people to food, to protect that right, and in circumstances where it is necessary to do so, also to fulfill the right by moving food in large quantities to areas of food deficit and to the vulnerables, the less privileged, the lactating women and the like, and growing children, so that they can maximize their mental power at appropriate stages in life. No one is saying that government should give people free of charge, but it is in the context of food as a right that people will meet their own obligation first and foremost of working very hard to earn that right. And the role of government in helping people to do that is to make good policies that will assist, facilitate the process by respecting that right, fulfilling that right, and protecting that right. We are not saying government should get food here and there to give people free of charge. People are private sector people, and they have the obligation to first and foremost make efforts to feed themselves. But to the extent that they are doing so in a particular policy environment, that environment should be conducive to help them achieve their right to food. That is what we are saying. We are asking government to address the issues of pollution and other such damages that private sector cause to the environment, that even government agencies cause to the environment, in order to protect the ordinary people who are growing food to be able to do it very well. Go on the Third Mainland Bridge and perceive the stench that goes on there. That is stench coming from several industrial concerns, pouring effluents into the water bodies. It has driven away fishes. It has killed the ones that stay back. Therefore, in that way, the private sector itself is destroying the people's right to food. And we will not like that to continue. It is now the role of government to protect that right by taking care of the private sector that is continually doing that. These are policy issues born out of the framework of food as a right.
Most Nigerians are well aware that the agricultural sector has historically been neglected in favor of petroleum. A poorly performing agricultural sector limits the domestic supply of food, directly affecting its availability and affordability. As a major employer of labor, low productivity in Nigerian agriculture also implies low incomes, high poverty rates, and limited purchasing power. The reasons for low agricultural productivity are fairly well known, experts believe. They say limited availability and high cost of good quality inputs such as fertilizer, seed, chemicals, and medicines for livestock, poor support infrastructure, weak extension services, underdeveloped rural input, output, and financial markets, substandard road networks, numerous unsuccessful policies and programs. All of these factors result in troublingly low yields of staple crops. Despite numerous strategies to increase rice production and favorable rice ecologies, average rice yields in Nigeria are between 1 and 2.5 tons per hectare against potential yields of 5 to 6 tons per hectare. Though a major maize-producing African country, maize yields in Nigeria are less than 2 tons per hectare on average compared to greater than 9 tons per hectare attained in the United States. This low productivity results in extensive and persistent food insecurity and poverty in the country. Some studies have shown up to 70% of Nigerians as food insecure. Given the current challenges to agricultural production in Nigeria, climate change is expected to make the situation even worse. Both higher temperatures and shifting rainfall regimes will lower crop yields compared to what they could be under a stable climate.
We talk about the climate element, that is the temperature, that is the precipitation. So as the climate change impacts in locations, you have those triggers. Unfortunately, you may have less rains, more rains, fluctuating, you understand. So it's always good for you to work with the predictions. The predictions are based on a record history of a long history of record, and that is being imputed into a model, and then you come out with the predictions. So once those predictions are out there and by all means, as you people can testify to that, we always look at the efficacy of the SRP, that is the predictions. We find that our predictions are close to being effective. In that respect, people should take it seriously. One is that we need to also have dissemination channels. People should get more people should get into it. They should understand what it means so that they can use it. And once you use it, I'm so sure if you do it this year, next year you have the reason to continue doing it. So we need the attention of the ADPs, that is Agricultural Development Agencies. We need the assistance of the Ministry of Agriculture, you understand, so that they assist in disseminating this information.
While scientists aren't sure exactly how rainfall patterns in West Africa will change over the next century, the region will definitely be hotter with negative consequences for staple crop production. Climate change can also exacerbate pest and disease outbreaks.
Challenges are there, you see. One is for people to accept. Sometimes people don't accept that this is for true, this is for sure. But from what we've gone through, you've seen the facts are showing that yes, things are happening. People should believe. If you don't believe in it, you cannot change. Advanced countries are using this one. No one will go onto the farm without weather information. Somebody will not even walk out of his house without weather information. Do you need to carry an umbrella when you're going out? You know, what routes do you go? Maybe to avoid probably flooding. Those are things that we are looking forward to reaching. So our people should look at that. It is a social responsibility. It makes people, you see, that is what they call early warning. You forewarn, even when you are in your bed, before you come out, you know what you should expect. At least, and it works almost perfectly okay.
Sea level rise, heavier rainfall and extreme heat can also take a toll on already stressed and inadequate infrastructure, which is needed to grow, harvest, store and transport crops. Heavy rains and storm surges in coastal areas can wash out bridges and roads. Droughts can deplete reservoirs needed to irrigate crops. Under higher temperatures, fruits, vegetables and animal products spoil more rapidly.
We can go on to downscaling for particular locations, for particular states, even local governments, we can downscale. And further, we can even go into the crop modeling. You understand? You give the models to the kind of crops people are planting in their own locations. We can give advisories on that as well. So I think if we partner with these agencies, there is going to be a great change in the agricultural sector.
In addition, Nigeria is already experiencing deadly conflicts between herders and farmers. As population and land pressure grow, climate change could make these conflicts even worse and could support recruitment by terrorist groups. People whose livelihoods are failed because of drought, flooding or other climate impact may be desperate enough to consider violence. The rise of Boko Haram is correlated with dwindling water resources in the Lake Chad Basin, which led to crop failure. Farmers subsequently abandoned their fields as they fled from the terrorist group. This is an example of how food insecurity, poverty and violence can feed on one another in a reinforcing spiral.
That is precisely why the Central Bank of Nigeria established NASA, to be able to provide guarantees to investors and financiers, banks and what have you, to be able for them to feel comfortable enough to put down the money behind any project along the value chain, whether it's upstream, midstream or downstream. Almost all actors along that value chain are eligible to access financing, but the banks, like you rightly said, require guarantees and comfort. So what happens is the NASL provides up to 75% guarantees for primary production where actual agriculture happens. For the other segments of the value chain like processing, transport and logistics, there are varying levels of guarantees we provide as well as interest drawback. So under the NASL model, the farmers in groups and cooperatives really don't need traditional collateralization. Our guarantees are sufficient for them to get those fundings from the banks.
On its part, the federal government hopes to increase insurance coverage for Nigerian agricultural primary producers to 3.8 million by the end of 2020 through the index-based agricultural insurance. NESA reported in February that it has developed and launched the Area Yield Index insurance product, which protected up to 6.5 billion naira revenues of over 37,399 farmers, with over 121 million naira paid out as compensation. Extreme climate events can undermine agriculture and rural development, even in years when extreme events do not occur. The uncertainty that results from climate-related risk is an impediment to sustainable intensification of agriculture and adaptation of climate-smart agricultural production practices. In an era of more frequent and more extreme weather events and climate shocks, enhanced early warning systems provide a key opportunity to curb erosion of development progress in rural sectors. Despite all of these serious concerns about how climate change will impact food security in Nigeria, experts believe there are also considerable grounds for hope. To begin with, Nigeria is still in the process of inventing itself and its future, and the country is a hotbed of innovation and creativity. There are formal technological innovation coming out of agricultural research centers which are developing drought-resistant crops, more effective fertilizers and dryers for safely storing maize. There are also the informal sector, as farmers experiment with diversifying crop production and finding ways to protect poultry from rising temperatures using ice blocks and improved ventilation. There are young people and women who have started to claim not inches but acres of opportunities in the agricultural space with enviable results to show for it.
The future there is talking about young people, it's talking about the youth. So we are saying that the future of Africa, whether we are going to continue to be a continent known for hunger, malnutrition and conflict, or whether we are going to change that narrative, lies in the hands of our young people. Young people need to come into agriculture. We need to empower them. We need to incentivize them. We need to facilitate them to come into agriculture and take their right space. That is the only way that indeed we can diversify the economy of Africa, Nigeria, that we can change the narrative for our people, that we can move from era of hunger and malnutrition to where people have adequate food and the right quality food to eat at all, especially children, especially for nursing mothers, especially also for the elderly. If we are going to be able to cut our budget on health without jeopardizing the well-being of our people, if we are going to have optimal yield from our investment in education, if we are going to need to spend much less on security, addressing conflicts and criminality, then we need to spend appropriately on agriculture, because not only would we be able to provide food that makes people be in the right mental and health condition, we'll also be able to create wealth. We'll also be able to diversify our economy.
Nigeria is an incredibly diverse country, climatically, agroeconomically, and culturally, and scientists know that diversity contributes to resilience. Resilience is the ability of a system, in this case, the Nigerian food system, to deal with changes and shocks and continue to develop. For example, if maize fails due to drought in a given year, millet, sorghum, and root crops could provide stable calories for the population instead. If heavy rains and flooding destroy the harvest in the southeast, production in the north could compensate. As Nigeria's agricultural sector develops, experts argue that there should be a focus on maintaining and cultivating this rich diversity.
Well, I think we have a huge opportunity at the moment for the message to really catch on. You know, sometimes, as it said, experience is the best teacher. Perhaps we've been living in fool's paradise for a long time, but I think development, especially in our economy in the last few years, has shown that we cannot rely on those traditional things that we think will bring us money. Is it oil, mineral, or even solid mineral? The best thing to rely on, which will democratize wealth, and that's the most important thing. When you look at these other sources, is money clustered in the hands of a few and of government. But when you're talking about agriculture, for instance, the wealth is going to be democratized. And recently, our young people got the government to pass into law the Not Too Young to Run bill. in agriculture, we really don't need such laws. What we just need is the political will, is the right frame of mind. Young people are already claiming these spaces, but it's not enough. We're seeing many Nigerians and many young Africans who are doing fantastic things in the area of agriculture, whether it's in service provision, whether as solution providers in the financial space, in the technology space, in the marketing space, in the distribution space, in the value addition space. People are doing great things, but we're saying that the tribe of these young people is still quite small. We need to grow it for us to have the kind of effect that we need to see. So indeed, it's not like the message is not catching on. It's just that it's not catching on at the pace that the urgency requires.
Technological solutions such as new and improved crop varieties can help somewhat, but on their own, they will not solve all of Nigeria's climate woes. So the government has been asked to avoid a silver bullet, a singular solution approach in favor of a systems approach to climate resilience. It has been preached that solutions will have to come from every sector of society and every scale of decision making. It has been seen that community-based approaches to climate resilience have been very effective in other parts of the world. Broadening participation in agriculture, particularly by young people, is also an important part of building resilience to climate change. Younger Nigerians will face more of the effect of climate change over the course of their lifetimes. Experts believe Nigeria's situation in regards to climate change is serious, but not hopeless.
Indeed, we have no choice but to get it right because the alternative is calamity. But yes, we can get it right. It's not rocket science, for instance, to put in place policy that says everybody deserves to have a right to food. That's something that our legislators will do. Now, even when our legislators do this, does it mean that is this something just wishful? Is it something we can attain? Yes, we can attain it. For instance, I tell you, if we improve on technology and knowledge to our farmers, and we are able to cut down the quantum of our agri-produce that goes to waste, we will be able to feed our population as it presently is. And what will that mean? Because we have challenges of climate change. Take, for instance, people are forced to do seasonal farming because we do not have irrigation infrastructure. Yet, this is also a country where anytime it's the rainy season, we have unexplainable flooding. So it means that nature is blessing us with these resources, but because we are profligate, we don't know how to manage it, we are losing things. It's rather than being a blessing, it's more or less like a curse unto us. So you have a lot of water that we are not harnessing properly. So what we need to do to ensure that we produce certain things throughout the year so that we don't have a situation where when things is in season, there is glut. When it's out of season, it's scarce. We need to be able to produce certain food staples around the year. Is it maize? Is it the cereals? Is it vegetables? Different kind of crops can be produced around the year if we're able to help our farmers with irrigation. And the implication of that is that you have, as is being described, people who are seasonally unemployed. So you find a teeming population of young people going to the urban centers, spaces like Lagos, hanging around, nothing to do.
If Nigeria is to effectively tackle the enormous challenges to food security presented by climate change, diversity, innovation, participation and awareness of climate change impact should be cultivated in all parts of the agricultural and food system. Fortunately, there is a large group of scientists, policymakers, farmers, community organizations, extension workers and others who are committed to taking on this challenge. Many believe Nigeria has the opportunity to become a global leader in building a productive and resilient agricultural system for the 21st century. The Sustainable Development Goals aim to end all forms of hunger and malnutrition by 2030, making sure all people, especially children, have access to sufficient and nutritious food all year round. This involves promoting sustainable agricultural practices, supporting small-scale farmers, and allowing equal access to land, technology, and markets. It also requires international cooperation to ensure investment in infrastructure and technology to improve agricultural productivity. That's our program for the week. Thank you for watching. You can watch this episode and other episodes of the program by logging to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/channelsweb. Please click the playlist menu and then click S-File. From me, Ayola Kasim, and the S-File crew here in Lagos, it's bye for now.